Welcome to Melanated Rising, where we inspire, uplift, and ignite Black creatives, all while changing the narratives around Blackness. What does it mean to exist Black in this world today with our many intersections? That's exactly what we explore, the challenges, the beauty, and the brilliance. Every episode is a look at what is possible when Black creatives stand in our undeniable power. I am your host, Kristen Iris.
And I'm Sara Haile-Mariam.
Welcome to Melanated Rising, everyone. We are back. And I have my first guest that I have, not had in a while because the show has been a little bit quiet, but we're here. So first guest, Sara is here with us, and she's got an energy about her that it's hard for me to describe. To tell you a little bit about her, she is a writer and storyteller and musician. She is the front woman and drummer of Makeda, which is a band on a mission to reclaim rock and roll, which I love.
Yeah.
Now, I've talked to Sara a little bit on my own, and I can tell already, like, we don't totally know where this conversation is going to go, but I can tell already that it's going to be really juicy because we are two artists here. And two artists who are claiming our art and who are claiming, our Blackness. And we're here doing some interesting work in the world. So welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Kristen. Yay. I'm very excited to be here right now.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. Now, I want to start off with a question. And that question is, what narratives around Blackness are you currently breaking or working to break?
This is such a big question because I feel like there's just so much to it. I think for me personally, the narrative that I've most been working on over the last few years is that other people are going to define Blackness for me, and that my job as a human being is to conform according to how Blackness has been defined for me and to me and at me. And so much of my internal work has been around recognizing that I define Blackness. How I show up in the world is inherently okay. It's inherently right. It's inherently Black. And if somebody tries to bring me something or tell me something about myself that's in conflict with that, that's actually none of my business. That's their stuff. I am a Black woman who centers myself, who centers Black people in the work that I'm doing, and who knows that nobody out there is going to tell me what that means to me. So that's my short version of what narrative I'm working through. But because I think it's such a real thing, it's white supremacy, part of what it did was it stole the concept of Blackness from us. Mm-hmm. It turned it into something. It turned us all against each other in an effort to find, because it's like white supremacy, I believe, is a worth that relies on the worthlessness of another. When we start to get into conversations around Blackness that are based on who's Black enough, what does it mean to be Black, we're doing the same thing. We're trying to find our worth through the worthlessness of another. Black is all of us. We all get to stand in who we are and be beautiful in that, and form community with that, creating art from that. It doesn't need to be a situation in which the ways in which I express myself, I express my Blackness, that doesn't need to take from somebody else. It just speaks to the diversity that is us. And when we can find a home in that, it's like the possibilities become endless. There's so much healing to be done, and just being able to see ourselves and see each other and know that there's divinity in who we are as we are. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to try. We don't have to it's just us as we are is enough. And so that's the narrative I'm working to break. It's a big narrative. It's
it is a big one.
This stuff gets instilled in us when we're so young, and it's so heartbreaking because we're just constantly inundated with this idea that we're wrong for who we are. and that the only way to correct that is to become less of who we are. And that's not true. That's not a truth. That's bullshit.
Or more of something else that's not us.
Yeah, exactly.
More like this,
yes.
Perform in this way.
Yeah.
Show up in this way, even though that doesn't feel authentic. Yeah. That's such a really powerful one that you're breaking. And it really resonates with me because, so I've been working a lot around like the Oreo complex, or what I call the Oreo complex, which is the idea that you're Black on the outside, but white on the inside. And the ways that we as Black people across the diaspora are told that we're not Black enough, whether that's by white people or by Black people or by other people of color. And my current program is actually based around this, is like breaking that, looking at the ways that has hurt you and breaking out of that so that you can be, empowered in who you are. Because like you said, how you show up is like, you are Black and you show up. Like you are showing up in your Blackness when you show up. You don't have to perform Blackness. You don't have to try to assimilate to whiteness. That I'm not saying that you don't necessarily have to code switch. Look, I don't work in a corporate environment, but I know the people who do. And that they have to operate in a certain way because corporate environments are typically based in white supremacy. But that's a matter of I'm trying to secure my future, or secure my finances or whatever. That's not a matter of like, I actually have to like change who I am at my core. It's like people who do that know like, I'm code switching right now because that's what I need to do to actually survive in this workplace, versus I'm just on my own, listening to rock and roll, or, being involved in whatever activities and someone's telling me that I'm wrong for it, or that's too white or something like that. It's like, no, none of that is like the things that you're interested in, the way you speak, the way you act is just you, and based on influences in the world. Yes. But you don't have to perform, Blackness. You don't have to deny Blackness and try not to be a certain way because that's too Black. And I think it's so important for us to, like you said, realize that we get to define Blackness. Like I get to define it for myself. Other people don't get to define it for me. And not only that, but like that it's made to divide us. That whole dialogue and all of that, like white supremacy is made to divide us. And so when we can come together and really allow all of us to show up as we are, which can take some work, because we all have these ideas about what is and isn't okay. And those ideas vary. But when we can come together in community, we as a community become really powerful. As a collective, we become really powerful.
Yeah. Well, it's like so much of that work is rooted in loving ourselves. Because when we feel secure in who we are, when we have found a way to love ourselves in spite of living in a society that teaches us to hate ourselves, even code switching, like the idea that that's something that we need to be doing, or the idea that anybody, it's like,
I know, I hate it. That's why I don't work in those environments.
Right. No, totally. But it's also like, well, what would happen if people showed up in those environments and didn't comply with that expectation? What happens? Like, what if we ask ourselves that? What happens if the ways we've been taught to survive, like, and to feel accepted, like, what happens if we really, really, really search for that acceptance within ourselves and hold space for that acceptance in community? What happens then? Because it's like, there's so many things that I feel like we're meant to just kind of take at face value. Even the work you're doing, it's exactly that. It's like, I grew up being told that I wasn't Black enough, that I acted white. And I remember hearing those messages and just kind of taking them at face value. And also, like, growing up, and I grew up in a predominantly white town, having to conform and assimilate so that I felt safe, so that I felt like I could find belonging in the spaces I was in. But at a certain point, that stopped making sense. Like, that was exhausting. I was constantly self-harming in an effort to, you know, get along.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I recognized that, I started asking questions, and it's like, okay, well, who defines Blackness? Where is that being defined? How is that being defined? Is it rooted in love? Does it create space for more of us to feel belonging? No, it's not. It's not. So many people have been harmed by the idea that they act white. So many people have been harmed by the idea that Blackness keeps them from things that they love.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm in a rock band. I didn't find music till I was 24. And when I did, I gravitated towards a genre of music that people told me I wasn't allowed to like. Come to find out, rock and roll is founded by a Black woman named Sister Rosetta Tharpe. So, like, I absolutely fucking belong here.
Yep.
But, you know, but like, at one point in my life, Blackness was being positioned as this thing keeping me from myself. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Why would that? I don't view Blackness as a deterrent or as something that harms us. To me, Blackness is the thing that heals us. It's the thing that makes us always, always, always more allowed to be who we are. And so when it's used in a way that doesn't do that, I call bullshit. That's white supremacy. What's actually happening, that's not Blackness. Blackness would never go to a Black person and try and make them wrong for who they are. So it's even, like I said, it's like, I think that even the idea of Blackness is something that we've, you know, seen distorted by white supremacy. And it's okay that that's happened. I think we can, you know, hold space for the ways in which we've moved through, you know, the trauma and the grief and the rage and the pain that is existing in the presence of white supremacy. And I think we can stand where we are now and ask ourselves, what's here for us to heal, and how do we want to do that, you know, and how can we do that together without it being, you know, like I think we can all heal. Like, there doesn't need to be any scarcity. There doesn't need to be any competition. When we really look to each other for that community, for that love, for that healing, white supremacy doesn't stand a fucking chance. It becomes a non-entity. It thrives on us looking to it for approval and permission and belonging. When we take that away, then what happens? So it's like, you know, I feel like it's just, there's so much here. There's so much power right here, us talking to each other, us listening to each other, us being with each other. We don't need white supremacy to heal the wounds of white supremacy. I think that work is work we can do in ourselves and in community, and we can take what we build and use that to shift the way the world works. But the first step is to look at ourselves and to really look at how have we been harmed, and what messages have we taken from that? Like, how are we turning on ourselves based on what we've been told? Mm-hmm. How are we turning on each other based on what we've been told? Yeah. Who do I need to apologize to? You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
exactly. Who do I need to apologize to? Who have I harmed?
Yes.
You know, I think sometimes we get really stuck in I don't like the word stuck. We get really focused and rooted in our pain and our trauma and our harm, that we're not looking at the ways we have lashed out to others and caused harm as well. Like, people who tell you that you're not Black enough, it's because they're hurt.
Yeah.
It's because they have a wounding themselves in the way that they were rejected, either by society or by certain people or something like that. It's not because they're just shitty people. I mean, some people are shitty people, but that's neither here nor there. You know, so like that we have to take responsibility for our actions as well, and the ways that we have or continue to perpetuate white supremacy, and how that plays out for us and for other people.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. I'm like, yes, to all of that. It's so real. It is. Because that's the thing. It's like, you know, we're human. White supremacy doesn't see us as human, but we're human. So what if we really start to honor that and ask ourselves, how have I been hurt by white supremacy? And how has that taught me to hurt other people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, what if that's the whole thing? What if, and this is true, and the ways in which like homophobia and transphobia, ableism, patriarchy all present in the Black community, that all of that is evidence of how we've been taught to harm other people in search of our own worth.
Mm-hmm.
And we like, all of that is a symptom of white supremacy. And so, especially if you are someone who holds any kind of, and I know it's like, you know, the idea of being both Black and privileged is like,
but it's true.
True. Yeah.
You know, there are different layers, you know,
Yep.
there are different kinds of privilege. I don't have white privilege.
Nope, absolutely not.
I have cisgender privilege.
Exactly.
And I have a largely socially acceptable body, you know, so that comes as privilege too. So
totally. English speaking, college educated, that's all privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I've only say that because I can see how someone can be told, well, you have privilege, and feel harmed by that. Because it's like, well, you know, you look at what the world is doing, and those privileges aren't necessarily protecting any of us. But I still do think that being conscious of the fact that there are certain kinds of struggle that I am not going to face based on the privileges I hold helps me get clear on where I could be harmful if I'm not more conscious. And so, and it allows me to make the choice to not do that, to not be harmful in ways I've been taught it's acceptable to be harmful in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, because it's like, and all of that, again, if it's rooted in love, then they can't stop us. Nothing will stop us. When the objective, the intention is to learn how to love each other, then a lot of these things that might otherwise make us recoil or get defensive start to go away. Because when you're trying to love somebody, that's the whole truth. That's the whole point. It stops being about ego and, well, I don't want to be made wrong. I don't want to feel like someone's told me I've done something wrong. It's not about that, though. It's about, I want to learn how to love this person. What do they need? I want to learn how to love this person. What do I need to feel more secure in the love I have for myself? How have I been hurt? What do I need to sit with? What do I need to process, you know?
Yes.
And that's like, we're not taught how to do this. White supremacy is not teaching us how to do this. This is like,
white supremacy is not teaching white people how to do it. So
exactly.
It's not teaching anybody how to do it.
For real.
Don't process, put it all down, shut down feelings you're not allowed to feel.
Yeah.
When we feel like we're superior, that's it. That's all you can feel.
That's it.
Is that emotion? Shut it down. Put that away. Like, that's white supremacy.
It's so true. It's so true. That's so true. It's even Jesus has just been absolutely taken by white supremacy and turned into this sanitized version of a person that never existed. Because it's like, if you really reckon with the idea of love, then white supremacy can't be permitted to continue. Because it's not love. I believe it's an attempt at loving oneself through the subjugation of others, but it's broken. It's based on dehumanizing oneself and dehumanizing others. So you're right. White supremacy can never teach us any of this. And not only that, what it does teach us is what not to do. Don't do it the way white people are doing it, because it's broken, you know? Like, and so that's why,
including all the ways white people don't realize they're doing it. I just want to pause and say that to people, is that white supremacy is not people in white hoods and, you know, doing like going to white nationalist meetings. Like, that's like a little like snowflake on the iceberg of white supremacy. Like, white supremacy is much deeper, and most of it is subconscious. Most of it is people not realizing that they're perpetuating it. So even the things that white people don't realize they're doing, we don't have to do that either.
Exactly. It's a powerful teacher, because it's like, you can see someone be told that they've been harmful and completely act out as a result, and just know, I don't want to be that person. I don't want someone to come to me and say, you've hurt me. And I don't want to do that. And so I got to sit with myself and figure out how I'm going to make sure I don't do that. And obviously it's like, we're seeing that with white folks, but we're seeing it with Black folks too, in leadership positions. All of that's telling, all of that's informative. All of that is contrast. And I think that the more we can look at those examples, and it's like, hold space for the fact we've all been taught to be this way, but also hold space for the fact that we can make a different choice. In that way, so much is happening right now that's teaching us on how to be better if we pay attention. And,
Yes.
it's like, I think we have that in us to be able to pay attention and make a different choice. But you're so right. It's like, don't do it like white supremacy does it. Don't do that.
Like that.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Now, on the subject of white supremacy, and kind of coupled with like owning your Blackness, we were talking before we started recording about your name. And something that you said is that lately you've been looking at how you can reclaim the things that you've given away. So talk more about your name, and we'll start with that one, because that one I was like, I've been saying your name wrong. I was saying Sara Haile-Mariam, I was saying Sara Haile-Mariam, actually, which sounds like Hail Mary. Maybe that's going there. But I was saying that, and I'm like, I'm saying your name completely wrong.
Yeah. Guess what? I have been too. And so, but like, that's kind of, it's like, so I immigrated to America when I was 2 from Ethiopia. And when I am at home, my name growing up, but like, I mean, I'm not home. I'm moved out of the house, so I don't hear it as often, but my parents call me Sara. I was named Sara. When I am in the company of other Abasha people, Ethiopians or Eritreans, my name is Sara. I introduce myself as Sara. And granted, there's like I don't speak the language very well. I don't speak Amharic very well. Even saying my name, it's like I'm probably mispronouncing it a little bit, but that's my name. And this was like maybe a little over a year ago. I was leaving a parking lot, and the guy working at the parking lot was Abasha. And he recognized me as being Abasha. And then it means either Ethiopian or Eritrean. And he introduced himself, and I introduced myself as Sara. And as I drove away, it landed for me for the first time that I say my name differently based on where I am, based on who I'm in the company of. And I started sitting with the possibility that I'm misnaming myself. And I started realizing that when I started going to elementary school, my teachers, I don't even know if I ever introduced myself as Sara, but I quickly became Sarah, and I never asked any questions. And so really over the course of the last year, I've been hanging out with this, and I've been introducing myself as Sara in spaces in which I'm new. For a little while, I was taking like these fitness classes. A lot of the teachers were white. And it was so interesting to realize how often me saying my name provoked a reaction from them. So there'd be times where I would be like, my name is Sara. And someone would be like, okay, Sarah. And I was like, no, my name is Sara. And then there was another time where the instructor was like, okay, I'll do my best. And I was like, it's not that hard. It's Sara.
Really not
and
that
so
hard.
It's really not that hard.
I had a little more trouble with your last name, but the first name.
That's fair. I had trouble with my last name. Yeah, that's all fair.
The first name.
So it's like it's 4 letters. Or people will like
2 of them are the same letter.
Yeah, it's literally spelled the same. I've had people also just reply saying something completely different. I'm like, where did you get that from? But so even here, I've been having this kind of been hanging out with the ways in which white supremacy was impacting me in ways I wasn't conscious of. And as I started to say my name and get those responses, I realized that by claiming my name, I was doing what I said was the narrative I'm working through. I'm defining Blackness for myself. I'm defining who I am for myself. And white people are having issues with it. When I say my name with Black folks, I don't get any pushback. It's just like, oh, that's beautiful. And so that was kind of when that happened, it's like, okay, so this is a thing. This isn't it's not just about my name. It's about how I'm allowed to show up in the world. Do I have to sanitize who I am so as to conform with whiteness, so as to make whiteness acceptable? Am I comfortable with doing that? Absolutely fucking not. I'm not comfortable with that. And so it's worth it for me to be in this process of reclaiming my name, even if it sometimes feels uncomfortable, even if it sometimes tastes different, like tastes weird on my mouth, because I've been calling myself something else for years. My partner of 5 years is calling me Sada now. That was an adjustment, you know? So it's like, it's an absolute reclamation, and I'm in process with it, but it's something that I'm increasingly feeling called to do, because my name is who I am. It's who I decide that I am. And so I might have given it away by accident, but I'm going to take it back, and I'm going to let people feel their feelings about that. And again, it's like fitness instructor who's not sure if you can say it. Great. You can't say my name. I'm not coming back to this class. It's that simple, you know? It's like, that's fine. But if I can say Brittany, like,
yeah, seriously, that's got like way more letters. Come on now.
So many.
Come on, don't be lazy. Don't be lazy.
So many more letters. Like probably some silent consonants. I don't know. But it's so real. So it's like, that's been a process for me. And it's like, to your point from before, growing up, I was told that I was, I acted white. So like the way that I kind of dealt with that was by being like, okay, well then I'm Ethiopian. So if I meet, people and they don't know what to do with my Blackness, I'm just like, okay, I'm Ethiopian. But then come to find out several years later, like I've had some stuff happen around being Ethiopian too. But it's like, if I was to live in Ethiopia based on my father's tribe, I would still be oppressed. So it's like, I feel like the reason I'm bringing this back to that is because it's such a real thing that even if we find ways to try and justify our Blackness, there's still going to be white supremacy and anti-Blackness present. The only way is to stop justifying ourselves, to stop apologizing for who we are, and to just decide, this is who I am. You don't need to get it, but that's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And
making that choice to show up like that.
Yeah. Yes.
I like that. Yeah. That's that's fascinating. See, some of the things that you said made me think. So when you talked about like reclaiming your name and that it may feel a little like it may taste strange like on your tongue and in your mouth, and like I feel that way, but not about my name, but about like Spanish words. So because I'm Black and half of me is Puerto Rican. So you're like, I don't know, is it the left half or the right half? But I'm half Puerto Rican, I'm half Black American. And so even words like people say like Afro Latino, and I'll be like Afro Latino or Afro Latina, or I'm Afro Latinx. I just say Latina because I identify as female, but even just like wrapping my mouth around that word sometimes feels a little strange. I don't speak Spanish very well. I'm relearning it. Like I learned it when I was I learned it with English, and then I stopped like my mom stopped speaking it with me. And so it's kind of my second first language, but I have like a child's level of understanding. And so I'm working to relearn it, but like even using those words, it's like, I am allowed to claim this. I am allowed to, say it like a Latino person would say it. Like I'm allowed to do that, and I'm allowed to fumble over the words, and I'm allowed to fumble over the languaging, because even though it's not that familiar, it's still mine.
Yes,
it's still
it
part
is.
of my history, and even though it is also the colonizer's language, it is still part of my history and my people's history, and like the makeup, because for me on that side is like African, Spaniard, and Taino Indian. Mostly African and Taino, I think.
Yeah.
I'm still learning my personal history here. See, but that reclaiming of it, it's like, it's like that I get to claim these parts of myself and my history and my ancestors. I get to claim that. And even though it feels a little fumbly on the tongue using certain words or language, or it just feels awkward trying to speak Spanish and being like, oh, I know people speak this way better than me.
Yeah.
I still get to fumble through it, and I get to give myself permission to fumble through it, you know?
Yes.
And to show up in that way. And so I think it's really powerful that you were talking about that, and like, even though you're fumbling through it, you still get to define it yourself.
Yeah,
you know, you
totally.
still get to claim who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important for people who are kind of on a similar journey, somewhere in there where they're feeling disconnected with a part of themselves, and they're reclaiming it. That like, it's okay to fumble through it, and it's okay to fumble through it in front of other people. You don't have to get it all perfect in your bedroom by yourself before you show up in the world.
Right. Oh my God.
To leave it in.
Yes. You're allowed to be in process. We are all allowed to be in process, because it's like so much of that. And it was actually Rachel Ricketts who in a post recently said that perfectionism is a tool of white supremacy, something like that. I might be misquoting a little bit, but that like totally hit me. And I feel like that's true when we hold ourselves to perfect or nothing, or when we hold ourselves to only accepting where we're at and who we are, and you know what we're doing when it's perfect, we're preventing our own growth. We're preventing our own evolution. And it's like, that's true for, you know, everything. It's like moving through the aspects of our identities that we're reclaiming. Yes, we're allowed to be in process. It does not have to be perfect. And if people are expecting perfection from us, then that's their business, but we don't actually have to do anything with that. And the same is true with like artistry. It's like, there's so many things that people gravitate towards, and they get there, and if it's not perfect right away, it's like the temptation is to abandon it. But no, it's being in process is the whole point. So if we really give ourselves that permission and that grace to move forward, no matter what we're doing, what we're working on, with the knowing that this is okay where it's at right now, and I'm going to take steps towards, like, you know, growing this, but I'm planting this seed, and I'm not letting anybody step on it. I'm not letting anybody block the sun. It's like, there's so much power in that, and there's so much healing in that, because we're taught that, you know, the way to survive in a white supremacist world is to be perfect. And it's like, I think some of that might be rooted in, well, if I'm perfect, then maybe I'll be accepted.
Oh,
no,
it is. That was me.
Yeah.
That was me. Like, that's why I say I'm a recovered perfectionist, because I'm really not. I'm really not a perfectionist anymore. But that was me. I'm like, if I'm perfect, if I'm super awesome, nobody can tell me that I'm not super awesome. Like, if I'm just absolutely excellent in what I do, then nobody can tell me that they don't see it. You know, so it was all tied into that, like this seeking validation, until like I realized that I was like, oh, this is not actually a good reason to excel. A good
and it doesn't work.
I love this field, and I want to excel in it. So there are things that, like, I was like, I'm gonna go to the Olympics for this, like literally two sports that I was like, I'm gonna go to the Olympics for this. And then I was like, you know, I really only want to go to the Olympics so that I can prove to everyone how good I am, and that people can't shit on me after that. And I was like, that's stupid. I should go do something else. Like, I still like, you know, like the other sport, I still like that sport, but I'm just like, this is I shouldn't say stupid. That's ableist. I apologize, everybody. It's silliness. It is silliness. Like, that is not actually a good reason. Like, you pursue and you excel because it comes from you, because there's something from you and for you in it, not because you are looking for something outside.
Yes.
And that's an athletics, and that's an art as well.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. I have nothing to add. Yes. That's where it's like, that's what self-love is. It's knowing that whatever we're doing, it's for ourselves. It's all, you know, it all feeds itself. So that's what lets us go out into the world and be like, this is who I am and this is what I'm up to. I don't give a fuck what anybody else has to say about it. I don't give a fuck what anybody else has to think about it. It's not about them. This is what I'm doing for me. And white supremacy is codependent. It is. What we're taught to do is to seek our approval, seek our validation, our worth in white supremacy, which is rooted in believing that we are subservient. So
yes,
it's a revolutionary thing to decide, I don't need approval from anybody. I don't need white supremacy sign off. I'm good right here as me. And that's it. That's like, it's not for debate. I'm not having a conversation about that. I just get to know it. And then everything that I can do comes from that place. And that's when, it's like when you're coming from that space, that's when being in process is okay. That's when being compassionate to yourself, being gentle with yourself, being encouraging of yourself, all of that comes from recognizing that the whole point is to grow. The whole point is to be with the things that I'm doing and to enjoy them. So the whole point is to vision and dream for myself and to experience the journey of getting there. It's like when that's where we're coming from, like magic happens, because it's removing ourselves from a codependent dynamic, a codependent relationship that has always been toxic for us, and deciding, I don't care what you see. I don't care how you feel about it. It's not for you that I'm doing this. It's for myself. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's such a big shift. And we've seen people do it throughout history. And I think that what's happening now is we're seeing a collective kind of reckoning happen. Because so much of being able to do that is rooted in setting boundaries. And the boundary of, I don't exist for your consumption, or I don't exist solely for your consumption or for your approval, that's a big boundary to be setting.
Yes.
And yeah. And white folks are having a lot of people are having a lot of difficulty hearing that.
Men and white folks.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Women are over here just so you know, I'm not over here twerking for your gaze. This is not.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't get to define what I'm allowed to do with my body. And they're kind of like, well, what do you mean? It's always been about me for forever.
Right. Mm-hmm. Nope. That day is done. Yeah. That time is over.
Yeah.
Get used to
a shift. Yeah. There's a big shift that's happening. Yeah. Now, this is on this subject of not doing things and not being here for the gaze of other people. I want to talk about art and being an artist and claiming yourself as an artist, because this is something that we've talked about and that we've both kind of experienced. Is this but can I say I'm an artist? Can I claim this word? Yeah. And that's something that I still actually a little bit fumble with, the kind of like some Spanish words. I fumble a little bit with artist because I am an artist, but I'm not a painter or, a drawer or something like that. And so there's this idea of what artist is. And my art it's different. My art is writing, or it's mostly writing books or writing screenplays, and that even if that work is not being consumed by other people, it is still art. It is still being created, and you are still an artist. Yes.
So I'm just going to say to you, you are a motherfucking artist. That's all that there is to it. The same conversation we had around Blackness applies here. What it is to be an artist, you get to define that. And what's happened over history is that our conception of what qualifies as art and who's allowed to do art has been defined for us by white supremacy and by patriarchy. Yes. And what that's done is cut us off from ourselves. It's cut us off from an essential part of our humanity, that impulse to create, that impulse to take what we're experiencing and make something from it, the impulse to feel a feeling and actually just be with that fucking feeling. And maybe after we've been with it for enough time, to use it to create something else, so that other people know that we felt this thing, we experienced this thing. So it's I spent so many years being like, am I an artist? And the answer is yes, I am an artist. That's all there is to it. I didn't choose it. It's part of who I am. I believe that everybody has an artist within them. And that for some folks, that impulse is like on the surface. And when we try and bury it, when we try and qualify it, we're like, it's like a stream is trying to pour from us, and we put our hand over it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're dealing with that pressure of the water is trying to flow, because that's what it does, but we've been taught to cover it up. And as a result, we suffer for it. I think a lot of people who do harm are on some level like struggling artists, or on some level they're people who have these creative impulses or these impulses that are inherent to who they are. They've repressed them so much, they're hurt by that, that now all they know how to do is try and hurt other people. But it's like, what happens if that person gets access to the tools that they need to facilitate their own healing? Mm-hmm. What happens when, and Black people are so fucking creative. You look at Black Twitter, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you see people.
It's like all the time that it's like, they don't even realize they're creative. Yes. That's like when I say I coach Black creatives, I'm like, creative is what you define. That includes athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, entertainers, like whatever it is, like that is creative, whatever is for you, whatever arena you like to play in. And I give people permission to define that for themselves. And it needs to be the same thing with art as well.
Yes. Because it's like creative power is available to all of us. Yes. How we materialize it, like what we do with that, is up to us. But we are a people that is like, we're all bursting with creative energy, and we've been taught to cut off that part of ourselves, to treat it like a hobby, or treat it like it's not important, when really it's a vehicle for love, it's a vehicle for revolution, it's a vehicle for transformation. Absolutely. And it's like, anybody listening who's sitting there thinking to themselves, she's not talking about me, I can't be an artist. I'm fucking talking about you.
Yeah, we're talking, you know what I'm saying?
Literally you.
We are talking, go look in the mirror, because that's who we're talking about right now. Yes.
It's all there is to it. And that's like, it's even this is a process of reclaiming what an artist is. Mm-hmm. If the word artist bothers people because it has its baggage, call it something else. You can call it whatever the fuck you want. But the truth is that there's creative power in us. And we've been so ingrained with this idea of the only way to like realize that creative power is to create things that gain mass appeal and that ultimately gain the approval of white people. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not here to play that game. I'm not interested in doing that, because why? Like, why would I do that? That's further perpetuating the codependent dynamics of white supremacy. And so I think that there's a huge opportunity for those of us who are Black and bold and creative to really ask ourselves, what is it to me to create content that's nourishing for Black people? What does that mean to me? What does it mean to me to create content that is affirming of myself? To really let that be the compass of what my art is doing, the compass of what my business is doing, or whatever people are up to. Like, what does that look like to me? What happens if all of this creative energy that I already have gets focused on creating things that are revolutionary and affirming and healing for us? Because I feel like it's like so much of what gets made, so much of the art that gets made is made for white people. It's not said explicitly, but it is what it is.
For white people, yeah.
Absolutely. And so like, even art that's made that's meant to discuss racism. How many times have you gone into an experience, gone into a film thinking this is for healing racism, and left it feeling really fucking harmed, or left it feeling a little bit traumatized? Why? Why are we doing that to ourselves and each other? What if everything that we're creating, first and foremost, the objective is to heal ourselves, to help each other? What starts to happen when we do that? Because it's like, I feel like part of why art gets so delegitimized is because at some level they know how powerful it is. Yes. When we get to define who we are, when we get to tell our own stories, like that absolutely flips the lid off of this whole thing. Because all of a sudden, our sense of what's real and true and present is being defined by us. It's not being given to us by white people. There's agency there. There's power there. Mm-hmm. And so recognize that, like, this has been like my takeaway, my realization is even the process of reclaiming my artist has been something that taught me things about white supremacy, that taught me things about power and love, that taught me things about what it is to be human.
Yes.
It's like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not a small thing to reclaim your artist. We're absolutely indoctrinated to believe that art is non-essential and a waste of time. That's not true.
It even gets taken out of programs in school for kids.
Yeah.
They're like cutting music and art programs, and they're even cutting PE, which anyways, but yeah, like they're cutting these programs. And it's interesting. So I have recently become like anti-capitalist. So I'm working on one, understanding more about capitalism and the things that I didn't understand about how it's inherently oppressive, but and it's white supremacist as well. And when you look at things like art and you look at things like money, and we're so conditioned to think that like money is power. Money is access. Like money gives you access to resources, sure, but like when you really think about like what's power, and art and expression and story is power, because that's something like you can paint something that makes somebody feel, and somebody can buy that. Sure, they could be like, let me buy this painting. This painting makes me feel, but they can't make that painting that makes them feel. And the person who can actually paint that, the person who can create, the person who gets you to feel, that's real power. And that's much more powerful than money. Money is abundant and of low value.
Well, it's like,
as one of my friends says, it's something that you like I said, I mean, money gives you access, but like when you think about like what's real power in a person, like I feel like art is power, and the ways that society has devalued art, even though arts and entertainment is definitely one of the biggest industries in this country, at least, the ways that it gets devalued is another way of like trying to take our power. So like your art, your creativity, your stories don't matter. And especially as Black people, or I mean, us Black people, but other marginalized people as well, is that like, oh, this doesn't matter. It's an attempt to take away power that we have that they can't copy with money.
Right. Well, it's yes to all of this. So money is neutral.
Yes.
Capitalism does things with money that are fucked.
Yes, that are oppressive. Money itself is
oppressive.
It's an avenue. It's a tool. It's an avenue. Yeah, you could do good things with it. You could do bad things with it. You could do neutral things with it. You could get food to survive with it. But like money itself is not anything. Like it's an avenue for something else.
Yes, and creativity is a form of energy, and creativity is actually a vehicle to get money. Like if you really take a step back,
it can be,
it's like, and this is where like when we're underestimating our creative power, it's like so many companies are rooted in taking our, like, just think about everything that's been appropriated and everything that's been stolen from Black culture. They take things that are organic and authentic to us and they go make a buck off of it. So it's like there's so much here to be healed around really viewing our creative power and our intuitions and our instincts and our impulses as as well, like you said, this huge power that's available to us, both to sustain ourselves, to brainstorm, to vision, to strategize, to just like chart a new way forward. It's like creativity is the act of creating something when it didn't exist before. It's like there's so much magic in that. And so, yes to everything that you're saying. Our creative power is everything. It's like we have the ability to create a whole new world based on this thing that's so inherent to who we are. Yes.
Yes. You guys can't see me, like me and her on a video feed, but I'm like, I have like excited
both jumping around
fingers and like my arms are waving because that is so true. That is so like, I redid my website last month and like on the main page, I'm like, you know what? I need to really like root down into what my message is. And like on the, like the tagline and on the main page right there is Black creative power, because there's so much power in our Blackness and our creativity. And we own both and bring them together. And that creates a foundation of your power where you can step into the world and change the world in a new way.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And there's enough to change, and there's enough room for every single one of us. It's like, like we all have access to this infinite well of power, and it's going to take all of us to transform the world as it is. And so the more that we can approach change and forward movement from a place of collaboration and compassion and cooperation, and really, really standing in the fact that, you know, when we rise together. It's like there's so much healing in that. There's so much power in that, because it's like everybody brings something so different to the table, and our perspectives are how we express Blackness is influenced by what we've seen, where we've come from, what we know, how we've been hurt, how we've healed, how we've struggled, what brings us joy. It's like all of these things go into creating beautiful people. And when you bring beautiful people together and we just like really know that that's what we've done, it's like the sky's the limit on what we can do. And that to me is like, there's such a huge healing opportunity right now to really root ourselves in that, to really view Blackness as something that is compassionate and loving and accepting, and something that's always rooting for our healing, rooting for ourselves and each other to do better, rooting for ourselves and each other to excel, to rise. It's like when that becomes how we orient ourselves to each other, it's like, you know, the paradigm that is white supremacy crumbles. It's like, what is it going to do? What is it going to do? Really?
Yeah. What really is it going to do when it's coming up against a collective of people who are working together to help each other rise? Like not just the individual. Like that's why this show is called Melanated Rising, because I'm here for the rising of the melanated, for us to help each other as a collective to rise. Because I mean, really, what power is going to hold up against that? But we've been taught not to do that. And that's the change that we are, that's the change that we are creating. You know, that's the change that, like, I see you on Instagram, you know, all the time, and like with these videos, and I'm like, man, she's at it again. She's over here speaking this deep truth about, you know, how you exist in the world, and love, and just like so many different things that you talk about. And I love it. I love it. And that those messages are going out there, you know, and people are seeing that, and people are, it's letting, I feel like the work that someone like you and myself and other people do is we're letting people know that it's okay to come home to themselves.
Yes.
That it's okay to come home to their Blackness.
Yeah.
It's okay to come home to, you know, their art and their own power.
Yeah. That gave me goosebumps, because that's so true. I've been watching your videos for a while now, and you do that with your work for me. it's when someone exists as they are, so unapologetically, it gives everybody else permission to at least consider that, well, maybe I can do that too. What does that look like for me? Like, oh, is that okay? Is it okay for me to do that? Oh, they said, because it's like there's so much, and it's like, I think that's part of being in process. There's parts of ourselves that are afraid, parts of ourselves that are unsure and uncertain. Courage is contagious. And so being brave out loud, like that sets things in motion. And we might not always see what it's setting in motion, but it's like our courage comes from the stories and the knowledge of what those before us came to do. We're building on something.
Yes.
And we get to build knowing that everything we do is contributing to what the next group is able to do. And it's like all of that is so rooted in love. And it's like what you were saying. It's like, yeah, what is white supremacy going to do in the presence of love? I mean, what can they do? Love is powerful. We're taught to believe that it's not. We're taught to believe that love is somehow like indifferent to injustice or indifferent to us, but that's not real. Love is what they are trying to find, and they're failing at finding it because they're white. There's nothing loving about white supremacy. So it's
I was just going to say what you said about like we've been taught to think that love is indifferent. That's white supremacists. Like the spiritual community and the love and light. It's like your love and light doesn't actually give a shit about me because you're just tossing that at me and you're not doing anything to help like these communities that need help. That right there sends the message that love is indifferent to the justice that you need. Love is indifferent to the problems that you face. Love is different to, you know, systemic oppression. And that's not true. It's like, that's not love and light. That's indifference and apathy.
Yeah, and oppression.
And oppression.
It's like they are oppressing folks and calling it love. And
it's like that's I don't think that word means what you think it means.
No. Something has gone wrong here. You guys gotta, you people need to like go sit with that because something has gone very, very wrong here. That ain't love. There's nothing loving about that. And it's like, they get to figure that out for themselves. But that's like, you know, I can't be responsible for white supremacy. At the end of the day, I didn't earn that shit. None of us earned that shit. That is
like I can be responsible for how I perpetuate it, but I can't be responsible for like white supremacy as a whole or how other people, you know, how white people perpetuate it. It's like that's for you to unpack. Not me. I have my work and that ain't it.
No, literally exactly. And it's like I can be responsible for how I've been taught to cope in the presence of white supremacy. And that's when things like internalized anti-Blackness come up. That's when things like, you know, perpetuating other forms of harm comes up. That's my work. But teaching white people how to love themselves, I can't do that. They, you know? And it's like, it's so interesting.
I can't teach you how to love me either.
No.
I can't teach you how to love me either. That's not my job.
No. Why would I spend my time doing that? How unloving of myself to do that. It's like
exactly how unloving. Like just to put it in perspective for you guys, that is like nurturing your abuser through how to not abuse you while they keep abusing you.
Yeah.
That's literally what that is.
Yeah. Yes. And it's like, and it also, again, there's this element of codependence and our healing, we're figuring it out on our own. There's, you know what I'm saying? Like if we
don't have anybody guiding us, we're guiding each other. We're working on it on our own.
If we can like, you know, workshop and brainstorm and collaborate and learn from each other, y'all can do that too. The idea that there's any kind of hand-holding that needs to happen is just one that I have a lot of trouble with because it's just like, it's like, go talk to your ancestors, you know? What do they have to say about what they've done? Why don't you go sit with that for a little bit, bring that to your journal? Because it's just, again, it's like, I'm the center of my experience and nobody's taking that away from me. And the idea that we are here to, you know, console and instruct white people through this transition that humanity is experiencing just doesn't jive with me. I'm not on board with that because why would I do that to myself?
Yep.
Why? you know?
These are the important questions.
Yes. Got so many questions.
Okay, so tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah. So a few places. You can find a lot of my writing, and I also do like poetry videos, and my band has an EP that we put out last year called I'll Say It How I Want To. You can find all of that at www.makedaband.com. That's MakedaBand.com. I post quite a bit on Instagram. That's just Instagram.com/my name. And my Patreon community is at patreon.com/my name. So Sara Haile-Mariam.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Everybody go check her out. Instagram is where I tend to follow her and look at her posts and her art and just the way she kind of combines things. It's really beautiful, and the discussions that she has. So go check her out. Check her out on Patreon. And thank you so much for being on the show and for having this like beautiful conversation today. I'm definitely going to go back and listen because there were definitely some good things in here. And just like some key things that like really sparked stuff for me. So I hope it did for you guys too. Please, let us know what you think, and go and reach out and make contact with her. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Kristen. Thanks everyone for listening.
What an incredible episode to reintroduce guests to Melanated Rising. I'm so excited about this conversation that we just had, and I hope you got some amazing things from it. If you are listening to this close to our release, I want to let you know that there are still spots available in my new program, From Oreo to Empowered. I mentioned it earlier in the show, and it is a 7-week intimate group program for Black creatives who were told they weren't Black enough, which ties right into the conversation we just had. We begin this Friday, March 1st, and I do offer scholarships for those who are experiencing a financial challenge or a financial difficulty. Head over to kristeniris.com/Oreo to Empowered and check out the program. You can apply and also apply for the scholarship there. And if you have questions, you can send me a message there as well. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you get new episodes, and please leave an honest review on iTunes. It is the best way to help others find us so that they can also get some of this juicy wisdom and juicy conversation. If you would like to help support this podcast, I invite you to join my Patreon page at patreon.com/melanatedrising. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and always remember to stand in your Black creative power.